Self-directed IRA allows investments outside of traditional Wall Street products, to invest in other asset classes. You can invest in real estate, syndications, notes, and also private lending. So it requires a qualified custodian, right? So as an example, I'm using directed IRA as an example, right? So let's say I have a self-directed IRA. So what that means is for any deal, I would have to go through directed IRA, and then they're the ones that cut the check to or wire the money to the investor, right? So how a solo 401k can help, this is geared toward those individuals that own and are entrepreneurs. Higher contribution limits than traditional IRAs, right? Your ability to borrow from your solo 401k, you have the opportunity to be flexible when it comes to purchasing an investment property. And what you can do is there's potential tax advantages, of course, for real estate investors. Hey, everybody, Dr. B here. Happy Memorial Day. I'm recording this on Monday. I'm going to disseminate this information Monday to Tuesday. Hopefully you had a great holiday, and thank you for those who made the ultimate sacrifice. And home of the free, land of the brave, as they say. So thank you so much. Yesterday I was able to see Mandalorian, and I don't know why I should have closed my email. I closed the email. So all right. So what I want to do is I want to share a little bit about empowering you using your 401k in order for you to invest specifically in some real estate deals that potentially you could do, right? So awesome. Alrighty, so you should be able to see my screen. All right, so you should be able to see my screen. So I want to share this very quick presentation on empowering your future, strategies for using your 401k or IRA to purchase real estate specifically, right? So just really quickly, I'm Dr. B. As you guys know, I'm Dr. Jairo Borja, and this is disseminated specifically to certain people as well. And hopefully you get to watch it, learn, and hopefully we're able to do business together, right? So again, this material is intended solely for educational purposes. Any examples provided are illustrative and should not be interpreted as investment recommendations or guarantees of future performance, right? Just FYI, right? Okay, I just want to make sure that I am yep, I am making sure that I'm sharing not just sharing screen, but also that I am that I'm live, that you can hear me. It's a little bit about me. I'm involved in over 500 units in 4 different states. I have 22 plus years of experience in higher ed and financial services, founder of Elevation 90-Day Mastery, host of the Dr. B Show, and of course, a 2-time best-selling author. And I oversee the programs for the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce in the state of New Jersey. I got my DBA from Walden and mentored by Amy Majuri, Shaw McNichols, Mike Ely, Mika Woody, Wendy Guzman on the real estate side, and I attended 22 WrestleManias. My goal is to get to 1,000 in the next year and a half, continue to build my coaching practice, get involved in being the bank, and I'll tell you what that is, continue being a capital partner, write a 3rd book with my daughter, and then take my show to the next level and own a hotel. That's like my ultimate goals, right? So wanted to give a shout out to Mike Ely. Thanks to Mike Ely, he was able to give me the guidance in order to finally get on the right path in regards to being able to participate in helping raise money, and in exchange got some sort of equity and involved in my first real estate deal in Southern Pines, North Carolina in the fall of 2024. So some facts about 401k. Americans have built over $10 trillion in 401k wealth, but every job change creates a risk that retirement savings becomes lost, right? I call it the dead 401k. It's forgotten or cashed out instead of continuing to grow, right? I've done both. I've cashed out because of emergency reasons, and I've also been able to roll over into my first deal, right? So that's the facts about 401k, right? So why use retirement funds for real estate? It's a great opportunity to grow wealth tax deferred or even tax-free in certain situations, right? Diversify beyond stocks and mutual funds, right? No disrespect to them, right? You're able to invest in rental properties, multifamily, lands, or notes and leverage compounding growth through real estate cash flow for sure, right? So, what's a self-directed IRA? It allows investments outside of traditional Wall Street products, to invest in other asset classes. You can invest in real estate, syndications, notes, and also private lending. So, it requires a qualified custodian, right? So, as an example, I'm using directed IRA as an example, right? So, let's say I have a self-directed IRA. So, what that means is for any deal, I would have to go through directed IRA, and then they're the ones that cut the check to the or wire the money to the investor, right? There's also the whole checkbook control where you can control that, but I'm not gonna get into that, right? But it gives investors greater control over retirement capital, as opposed to just putting it in stocks and bonds, right? So, how a solo 401k can help. This is geared towards those individuals that own and are entrepreneurs. Higher contribution limits than traditional IRAs, right? Your ability to borrow from your solo 401k. You have the opportunity to be flexible when it comes to purchasing an investment property. And what you can do is there's potential tax advantages, of course, for real estate investors, right? And what you could do is on the gains of the deal plus the principal, you just put it back and then you're growing it a lot more, a lot quicker, a lot better than just leaving it in the sitting there in the dead 401k. So here are the actual steps to purchasing real estate with retirement funds, right? So shout out to directed IRA, and I use Broad Financial, I believe, as well here locally in New Jersey. But we have a partnership with directed IRA. So thanks to Amy Majuri and her crew. So the steps to purchase real estate with retirement funds. So this is what I suggest for folks that have dead 401k or money sitting in a 401k not doing anything, not right. Of course, it had to be dead, or you'd have to leave the job or quit or get fired, right, to get access to that if it's your current. But if it's your older ones, what you could do in theory is you could roll it. You could open a self-directed IRA or solo 401k. You could then transfer or roll over those retirement funds. You could identify an investment property or syndication, right? You can perform due diligence, of course. It's all about the money and the operators, right? Purchase the property through the retirement account and allow the rental income and profits to flow back into the account, right? So at that point, you're killing it, as opposed to just what is it, average of 7 to 8% in the S&P 500. You're killing it, man. You could either be an active investor or a passive investor. With the passive investing, look, you weren't doing nothing with the money anyway, right? So might as well, at least instead of making 7 to 8%, why not make 12 to 18% depending on the deal, right? So allow that money to grow back into the account plus interest, right? So common mistakes to avoid as an investor: personally benefiting from the property itself, mixing personal and retirement funds. You got to be very careful there. Ignoring prohibited transaction rules, right? And then failing to, as an example, I believe, because I go through it every year, you have to file this annual report, making sure that your solo 401k is continuing to be active for IRS purposes. So you have to make sure that you pay attention to those things. If you don't, you'll be flagged, and then you're gonna you go through several consequences that you don't want to make, right? So failing to work with experienced custodians and advisors as well. So I would say, work with vetted individuals. I would say, I work with directed IRA, I work with Broad Financial, or work with someone that knows someone like me to kind of help you, guide you through that, right? So hopefully you're ready to empower your future by creating passive income and long-term wealth through strategic retirement investing, right? So that's me. That's Dr. B. That's Dr. Jairo Borja. So now what I'm going to educate you on is some different real estate strategies, and then I'm going to actually speak about certain deals at the end, right? So what happens if you let your 401k just sit there? Inflation quietly reduces your purchasing power, right? Market volatility can impact, of course, your long-term growth, right? So also traditional retirement accounts are often heavily tied to Wall Street, right? And of course, you're at the mercy of whatever fund you chose at your old employer. So many investors never learn about other ways or alternative wealth building strategies. They think that the assumption is you work 40 years, you put money into a 401k, you retire, and that's it. No, but there's a lot of different alternative ways for you to build wealth, right? And one of the ways is, of course, rolling over the money that you already had, you already accumulated in your previous employer, roll it into self-directed or solo 401k, and then use that solo 401k in order to purchase the property, right? So there's also that opportunity cost. Your money may not be working at its highest potential, right? So something to think about when it comes to what happens if you just let it sit in a dead account. So historically, the average returns between 7 and 10%, and you're subject to market swings and or corrections, and also emotional investing. What did the president do? What did this guy do? What did the chair do of this and that and that? So it's very volatile and very emotional investing. With real estate, you have potential for the most part, as long as you're connected to a good operator and a good location. As long as you do great due diligence, for the most part, there's potential appreciation, cash flow, and also tax benefits as well. You also have the ability to leverage, assets for greater returns, right? You have multifamily and syndication deals that can outperform traditional investments as well, right? And some other things that I'm going to share later today, right? So, an example. This is again, it's just an example. This is not a real case. So, what you actually take home, right? So, for example, 100K in a traditional 401k, early withdrawals before retirement may trigger ordinary income tax, right? Because you'll be count as ordinary income. I've been there, done that, and then you get that 10% early withdrawal penalty, right? So the outcome is you get taxes and penalties to reduce accessible funds significantly, and strategic investing may allow you retirement funds to continue compounding, right? So I went through it positive and negative. Obviously, I went through the negative, and I went through the positive where I was able to, thanks to Broad Financial, I was able to roll it. They didn't pay any tax. Called it something Dr. B something trust, and then was able to send that check directly into the deal, right? So the solo 401k essentially invested in the deal, right? So that's something to think about as you start growing your generational wealth, right? So why investors turn to real estate specifically? You have cash flow from rental income for those that are active landlords. You have appreciation over time, right? Tax advantages and also depreciation. And now, depending on the structure, or depending on what you have working on, sometimes you can take that depreciation earlier than usual, which will help you with your tax bill at the end of the year. Control over investment decisions, not just putting it into a mutual fund that has all this random stocks, right? So you know where your money's going, and you have the ability to build generational wealth. And as I pulled this quote, 90% of millionaires are made through real estate investing, right? So no matter who you speak to, there is some real estate is a part of every millionaire or billionaire's life in some way, shape, or form, right? So I pulled this from my other presentation. So what would you do if capital wasn't a limitation? You're able to use your retirement funds to create passive income. You invest in apartment syndications or commercial real estate. You could also become the bank through private lending, and I'll get into that later on. You could also position yourself for long-term wealth creation. And at the end of the day, you have to build a strategy instead of relying solely on traditional retirement planning, right? So something to think about there. All right, so now I'm going to get into specific the three strategies, and then getting into some actual deals that I have going on. So what does being the bank mean? So instead of borrowing money, you become the lender, right? So you could essentially use your retirement funds or capital that is used to provide loans secured by real estate, right? So as the borrower makes payments, you earn interest similar to how banks generate wealth. And what I would do if I was you is all those payments back into the account, and and then you'd be fine, right? That's what I would do. So how the process works. So basically you would deploy capital through a self-directed IRA or solo 401k. The funds are lent to the real estate investor or homeowner, right? The loan is secured by real estate collateral. So, if something were to happen, you obviously have the real estate as a collateral. You probably would be maybe not the first lien, but for sure, definitely the second or third, right? The first lien would always be the mortgage company, right? Borrower makes the monthly interest payments, and investor receives passive income and principal repayment at the end of the term. So, as an example, let's say you borrow 50K, right? You'll make the monthly interest payments, and at the end, you do a balloon payment for the principal amount. And essentially, what this does is helps those individuals get out of from pre foreclosure into no longer being in foreclosure, right? So it bails them out, right? So this is more and more common every day, and more individuals are getting into that stage, unfortunately, because that's the way the economy, right? So yeah, so you can, in theory, the money that you have sitting there, why not put it to use? Why not be the bank, right? And that's what this process is all about. Okay. So as an example, let's say the investment amount is 100K. It's a short-term real estate bridge loan at 12% at approximately $1,000 a month. Your estimated return is $18,000, right? Plus your principal. So you're gonna make, you're making $1,000 a month plus your principal. So your money's working for you while being backed by real estate assets. That's why I love real estate, right? So that's an example of how that would work. Okay. So again, I'm gonna repeat it again. So at a 100 G's or 100K at an annual return of 12%, approximately, you'll make about $1,000 a month, 18 months. Let's say if the note is for 18 months, so you'll get 18K plus the initial principal of 100K, so 118K. And if for some reason they default or whatever like that, obviously you have the real estate as a collateral. Okay. So why do investors like private lending? It's passive income without dealing with the tenants, toilets, and trash. It's secured by the collateral itself. It's predictable monthly cash flow, right? And it's shorter investment timeframes compared to long-term holds, right? And it's the opportunity to retire to retirement funds used to generate income, right? So again, these three strategies that I'm giving are independent one of each other, and of course, it's different parties that are involved. But what I'm teaching today is the concepts, and if you're interested in more information about any of the three tips, more than happy to connect, right? So understanding the time frame, typical private lending deals last between 12 and 18 months. This allows investors to keep capital moving, reinvest into other opportunities, receive constant income distributions, and maintain flexibility to traditional and buy and hold strategies. And also, in that 12 to 18 month time frame, you hope that the borrower will be able to get up to speed and be able to get out of their way, right? So because things happen, right? Because you could be making money, and then all of a sudden it could be health, or it could be something else, and all of a sudden it could be a drastic event, and then you get behind on your bills, right? But as long as you're as long as you get back out there, back on the horse, you do have about a year and a half to kind of get that done. All right, so hopefully you're able to understand what being the bank is all about. So now I want to get into what syndication means. So real estate syndication allows multiple investors to put capital together to purchase large real estate assets, right? So general partners manage the deal itself. Limited partners invest passively, right? That's the difference between GP and LP. Investors receive cash flow appreciation and equity growth, allows access to larger multifamily or commercial properties. So again, the difference between being a bank and real estate syndication is you could purchase larger assets, right? Think about it. If 10 people that pool 100K each, that's $1 million, right? So that's a lot easier than coughing up the $1 million, right? So that's something to think about there. So how does syndication work? The sponsor identifies an apartment or a commercial deal, obviously do the underwriting, make sure that all the numbers check off. Then the investors contribute capital through a self-directed IRA or solo 401k or cash. The property is acquired and professionally managed by the operator, right? Cash flow is distributed during the hold period, and properties refinance or sold for profit at the end of the business plan, right? So most syndications, the way it works is, I'll give you the scenario for the most part. You put in a certain amount down, there's a bridge loan of some kind for the most part. Then at the by the end of year 2 or year 3, there's a refi. On that refi, most of everyone gets their principal for the most part, plus they get a pref. Then what happens is um, they'll get their quarterly distributions, right? Right, and on the sale, essentially, you will double your money, right? That's how most syndication deals work, right? So that's what that's what I'm describing here, right? So a typical, this is the next slide. I jumped ahead. So using the 5-year plan, most syndicators operate on a 3 to 7 year business plan. Typically, you're acquiring and stabilizing the rents and increasing the rents and of course the property value and of course the common areas and right and taking over the books. Years 2 to 4, you're increasing rents, improving operations, growing that cash flow. Now, year 5, you're selling or refining the property, right? So the goal is to increase property value and investor equity over time, and that's how syndication works, right? So what is a 2x multiplier? So as an example, let's say I invest 100K with a 2x equity multiplier, so 200K is returned to you throughout the life of the investment, right? So it includes cash flow distributions during the hold period and profits from the sale or refinance of the property. So that's what an equity multiplier means. Okay, so pretty simple. So as an example here, right? Let's say you invest 100K for 5 years at an annual cash flow of 6 to 8%, targeted equity multiplier at 2x. So approximately you're going to get 200K over 5 years, which includes passive income and appreciation and equity growth. So your retirement funds can participate in larger real estate deals as well. So how awesome is that? Come on, guys. Come on. All right. So this is something that I'm working with someone locally here. I trust him. He works with a good team here, right? Again, he's a partner of mine, so I fully trust this guy, right? So fix and flip investment involves purchasing and distressing outdated properties, renovating them, and selling them for profit, right? It's usually like it could be a small window, it could be a big window, depending on the deal, depending on the house and all that, right? So you could invest passively by funding projects through your IRA, solo 401k, private lending, and also JV partnerships as well. So the pros and cons of fix and flip: shorter investments, timeline usually 6 to 12 months versus 5 years in a syndication, or 12 to 18 months in a being the bank. Potential for higher returns. It's real estate backed investments, right? Obviously, the collateral is the home itself. Your opportunity to recycle that capital quickly, right? So the cons is, I've seen it, and I have friends that talk about it. There's construction delays. There's a lot of things that that the inspector oversees, and then all of a sudden, boom, there's a delay of a month or 2 months, which will delay the money flipped, right? Market fluctuations, permanent contract risks, and also profit margin can shrink without proper execution and not conservative underwriting and not anticipating for various worst case scenarios, right? So sample fix and flip that I kind of created here. Purchase price was $850, rehab budget $600K, total project cost is 1.4. The ARV after repair value is 2.2. So potential growth spread or approximate equity gain is about 800K, and typically it's between 6 to 12 months from acquisition to the sale, right? So that's typical on that, right? So there's something to think about there. So it sounds sexy, it's pretty awesome, but of course, that's everything done right? The correct conservative underwriting, great GC team, general contract team, great realtor, right? And at the end of the day, it's all about being able to get in and out as quickly and as efficient as possible. Now, things come up, but you have to be able to anticipate that, and hopefully you have reserves for that. So that's the pros and cons of that, right? So passive investors can fund gap funding, right? Maybe, hey, I'm short X, Y, and Z, the construction financing, the acquisition costs, and also short-term bridge loans, right? Because I'll give you an example, right? Let's say I lent Jason 50K, right? So with the 50K, he's able to purchase the home at a super steep discount cash. Then what he would do is fix it up. He would connect with his realtor to sell it on market, right? And let's say they buy it at a certain price, boom, they buy it, and then or what the individual could do is a cash out refi as well, and then you could pay the individual that way or pay it on the sale of the home, right? There's a lot of different ways to kind of do that. But at the end of the day, it's you have monthly interest income, right? Depending on the deal, profit participation, and of course, it's real estate backed security as well. Okay. People, here's my squad. Thank you, Wen and Mike. I talk to them all the time, and that's Tim Best and Tim Vitale, and that's Nevia there. Tim Vitale's not there, but Tim and Tim did a fantastic job with a few weeks ago with a deal that we have going on. If it wasn't for them, that deal would have died as far as the refi and all that. So thank you for your patience, guys, for sure. Yeah, man. So what I'm going to discuss real quick is there's a couple of current opportunities. There's a Cincinnati syndication deal that it's closed. But there's an opportunity for a investor or two, being the bank opportunity, and then there's a local fix and flip that I'm working with someone, right? So the Cincinnati deal, it's a 350 some odd portfolio that we closed back in November, but we still have we're still being renovated. There's still a lot of great progress. It's passive investing through syndication, potential cash flow distributions, opportunity to invest your self-directed IRA or solo 401k. The minimum investment is $25K, but we're going to wrap it up once we close at $125K, right? So once we reach that number, we're able to, and we're raising for reserves essentially, right? So right now it's ongoing, the process of stabilizing the property, right? So we have opportunities if you're interested in investing in the Cincinnati deal. Let's chat about that. I believe we have an investor ready to rock, but in case, as always, you never know, right? So that's that. There's also an opportunity to being the bank, right? Earn passive investing through real estate backed lending. So typically it's going to be around 12%. And it's between 12 and 18% time frame. It's secured by real estate collateral, consistent monthly income, monthly or quarterly income potential. Let's chat more about this. The minimum investment for this is $50K. So just give you an FYI here, right? So if you're interested, let me know about this as well. And then last but not least, we have working with a gentleman and his crew here locally in Jersey. Again, I'm just the helping raise money here. So there's the opportunity for luxury renovations and new construction projects. Typical timelines between 6 and 12 months. Potential profit participation and passive returns backed by the real estate asset itself. Opportunity to participate in local NJ development deals, and a minimum investment here. I believe it's $50K as well, right? So again, protected, secured, and insured by the asset itself, right? So if you're interested in either the syndication deal, more long term, right? But you'll 2x your money, you'll able to make your 12% and get that principal at the end of the term, being the bank yourself, and or getting involved in local fix and flip here, right? So there's 3 choices. You do nothing, and thank you for watching. Hopefully it's very educational. Step 2, you kind of do it yourself, try it out, we'll see what happens. You may win some, may lose some. Or let me help you. Again, let me help you, and at least you'll be able to at least handhold you through your first investment opportunity, right? So the choice is yours. So again, let's connect, and hopefully we could kind of work together, because I'm working actively on those 3 deals, right? So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and hopefully you found that very helpful and very useful in regards to that. So I enjoyed this session. Happy Memorial Day as I record this, and we will disseminate this as soon as possible. Again, there's you want to do nothing, do it yourself, or let me help you, right? You have the opportunity to invest in a traditional syndication, right? There's a 5-year hold on that. You could be the bank, right? That's more like 12 to 18 months, or you could be involved in a local fix and flip, which is 6 to 12. And you know what? I educated you guys today on on a solo 401k and or self-directed IRA. It doesn't have to be the cash you have in the bank. It could be old 401k from a previous employer, right? So if you're interested in any of those three deals, let me know, and I'll make sure everyone gets this information. And thank you so much for listening. Happy Memorial Day. Take care.